The Young and the Restless spoilers Friday's full November 7, 2025. Plunges Genoa City deeper into turmoil, as secrets begin to collide and loyalties fracture under the weight of fear. The story opens in the sterile calm of the hospital, where Nick Newman finally sits beside his recovering son. Noah, pale but restless, adjusts the bandage around his head and looks at his father with confusion that borders on panic. "Has anyone told me what happened?" he asks, voice cracked by medication and uncertainty. Nick freezes, realizing the damage runs deeper than anyone anticipated. Noah doesn't remember the crash, the night, or even the danger that led him there. Desperate to protect him, Nick forces a smile and says the words he doesn't believe: "It was just an accident." But his tone betrays him. He pats his son's arm, promises to return soon, and leaves before the mask slips. Outside, the Newman women converge like a storm front. Victoria and Nikki stride into the room moments later, their concern sharpened into interrogation. They hover near Noah's bedside, their questions coming fast, their faces tight with suspicion. They sense what Nick and Sharon have tried to bury, that something darker than chance put Noah in that canyon. When Nick meets them in the hallway, Sharon stands quietly by, torn between honesty and survival. Nick whispers to her, his eyes hard with command, "Don't tell them about Matt Clark. Don't breathe his name." Sharon nods reluctantly, but her silence only fuels Victoria's instincts. As soon as Nick walks away, Nikki corners her with the kind of motherly precision that has undone stronger liars. "You're protecting someone," Nikki insists. Sharon denies it, but her voice trembles, and that tremor tells Victoria everything she needs to know. Within minutes, both women conclude that Noah's danger didn't end when he woke up, it's only sleeping beside him. Meanwhile, Sienna Bacall faces her own reckoning. In an interrogation room dimmed by fluorescent fatigue, Detective Burrows presses her with quiet, relentless authority. Every question is surgical. What did she know about Mitch Bacall's business? When did she last see him before the crash? Why do her financial records connect to shell companies in Mitch's name that predate his supposed marriage? Sienna deflects with elegance, but cracks show when Burrows slides a photograph across the table, a surveillance shot of her meeting Matt Clark outside a warehouse weeks before the accident. Her face drains of color. She claims it was about club renovations, but the detective doesn't blink. "Renovations don't require burner phones," he says softly. The room falls into silence so dense it feels like gravity. Sienna realizes that the police are closer to linking her husband's crimes than she ever imagined, and that her cooperation might not save her if the full truth surfaces. Back at the hospital, the Newman matriarchs continue their quiet interrogation of Sharon. Nikki's tone softens, almost maternal, but her eyes are sharp as glass. "You've been through enough," she says. "But if Noah is still in danger, we need to know." Sharon holds her ground, insisting that her son simply lost control of the car. Yet her defensiveness is too practiced, her pauses too long. Victoria watches her with growing unease. Every instinct tells her that Sharon is concealing something catastrophic, something involving the man now calling himself Mitch Bacall. When Sharon insists that Nick is only handling business, Victoria knows the translation: he's hunting Matt Clark again. In another corner of Genoa City, a different truth surfaces. Claire Newman, preparing to leave town after weeks of family chaos, finds herself interrupted by Holden Novak. He stands in her doorway, the weight of guilt pressing his shoulders down. "I can't let secrets live between us," he says, and the words feel heavier than she expected. She hesitates, but he continues, confessing a past she never knew, his years tending bar at the Shadow Room, where he once crossed paths with Audra Charles. Back then, she was a struggling artist with a habit of finding inspiration in dangerous company. Holden tells Claire that he and Audra were involved in something they shouldn't have been, a scheme that blurred into criminal territory and still haunts him. "It was years ago," he insists, "but the choices we made back then, they ripple." His honesty shakes her. The revelation isn't just about the past, it's a warning that every truth eventually finds its way to daylight, no matter how long it hides in the shadows. As night falls, the threads begin to tighten. Victoria and Nikki leave the hospital, promising to dig deeper into Noah's accident on their own. Sharon stays behind, watching her son sleep and whispering silent prayers that the truth stays buried a little longer. But in another part of town, Sienna signs the final page of her police statement, sealing her fate as either an informant or an accomplice. And Nick, alone in his car, grips the steering wheel so hard his knuckles pale. He knows that every secret his family tries to protect will eventually burn them alive. The episode ends with parallel images, Noah dreaming of headlights on a canyon road, Sienna staring at her reflection in the police interrogation mirror, and Victoria opening a folder labeled Matt Clark, classified evidence. Genoa City breathes uneasily, aware that the ghosts of the past are no longer content to stay buried. The memory does not arrive as a scene so much as a pressure change, the way a room tilts when a bad idea acquires gravity. Audra in a black dress at the shadow room, a flute of champagne warming in her hand, the club's light behaving like a rumor along the brass rail while a gallery owner with a surplus of money and deficits everywhere else laughs too loudly at his own anecdotes. He is the kind of man who pitches consent as a lifestyle brand, who thinks bubbles erase boundaries, who leans in because he has built a life where no is a price point. Audra's smile is the armor she can afford. She shifts stools, changes subjects, waters the drink with ice that melts faster than the clock. He interprets every evasive move as choreography performed for him. Holden sees it before the bouncers do because bartenders keep a second set of eyes for trouble, and the second set never blinks. He wipes the counter that doesn't need wiping, drifts closer, and asks the man if he needs a car called, a check closed, a night ended. The man declines with the buoyant contempt of someone accustomed to service as subservience. Audra's hand stills on the stem. She is calculating the distance between humiliation and harm and finds they share a border. When the man's bottle arrives, she reaches for the receipt, laughing lightly, and in the same motion that moves paper she moves air, and in the same motion that moves air she moves a wallet, an afterthought, a reflex, a dare to the universe to pick a side. She leaves before the cameras can agree about where she was standing. Holden piles dishes as distraction, then stashes the wallet behind a till, heart doing the arithmetic that fear makes clumsy. An hour later the gallery owner returns with a face taught to perform outrage, two security friends the size of decisions flanking him, insisting that a banker's check for $500,000 has disappeared with the leather. In an instant, the room becomes a courtroom with no judge. He calls Audra names that turn the air corrosive. He calls Holden an accomplice and then a fool. He claims he found the wallet in the men's room, which is not true, and that the check is gone, which might be. Holden feels the floor tilt harder. Then Mitch enters, Mitch Bacall, patron saint of curated nightlife, smile calibrated for liability exposure, voice already lowered to the register that makes angry men feel embarrassed for being loud. He thanks the gallery owner for his patronage, produces a note about housekeeping confusion, a receipt stamp, a promise to review the footage and make it right. The phrase "make it right" lands like a sedative. The gallery owner hisses that right would look like a cashier's check in his hand and an apology from the bartender and that girl, but Mitch steers him toward the exit with the kind of grace that only comes with practice. When the door shuts, Mitch's face goes still. He tells Holden, without telling him, that this never happened. Holden hears the message the way all service workers hear it. Protect the brand or the brand will protect itself from you. He checks the cameras as ordered. In the angle that matters, a light flares white and turns everything into silhouettes and plausible deniability. The night dissolves into bleach and closing counts. By morning the story metastasizes. Audra returns flushed with the wrong kind of adrenaline, explaining that the man has her address, that men were at her door, that she needs the wallet gone. She gives it to Holden as if passing a contagion. He walks the few blocks to the gallery because fear feels less real when the sun is up and because the shortest distance between disaster and dignity is sometimes an errand. The owner meets him in the doorway with a rehearsed discovery: the wallet was found in the bathroom, and something priceless is missing, and the bartender will tell management, and management will fire him, and men who fix problems will visit at dusk. The accusation detonates without making a sound, it simply rearranges his future. Back at the club, Mitch is waiting with the look that means he already knows more than he plans to say. He steps into the story like a man accustomed to inserting himself into damaged timelines, calls the gallery owner personally, blames short-staffed security, murmurs insurance, drops a hint about sponsorship packages and soft power favors, and the problem becomes an invoice. After midnight, Audra texts Holden a single line, "Sorry for the mess." He reads it twice and cannot tell if it is an apology or an epigram. Time does not pass so much as coagulate. Weeks later, when Holden has almost convinced himself the threat has evaporated, a package arrives, no return address, an envelope inside, a crisp cashier's check for $100,000 made out to him and a card with nothing but a smudge where a signature should be. The number isn't restitution, it is leverage with the dignity filed off. He tells himself it must be a thank you, a contractor's gratuity, hazard pay for standing between a woman and a wolf, and he lets the bank tell him the same lie with a stamp. He spends almost none of it because some money glows in the dark. He learns to live with the awareness that if she falls, he falls, capital is a contagion. A year blurs into another and Audra Cortez becomes Audra Charles with the ease of someone who has learned that a new name is a seatbelt. Holden changes nothing, same apartment, same quiet, same discipline, except the way he flinches when men in suits ask casual questions. He believes he will not see her again. Genoa City cures him of that belief. When he finds Claire packing to leave, the confession is not chivalry, it is triage. Secrets rot quicker when you try to store them in good people. He tells her the story as cleanly as he can, sanding off the melodrama until only the mechanics remain. A night in a club, a man who mistook access for entitlement, a theft that looked like self-defense, a missing $500,000 that meant something to someone very dangerous, a benefactor who arrived with solutions and left with silence, a check that chained him to a woman's past and a stranger's rage. Claire listens with the stillness of someone who has had to rebuild her own life out of wreckage and recognizes the architecture. She is not surprised that Audra let him hold the guilt like a hot stone. Survival can privatize empathy. She is not surprised that Mitch protected him. Protection is a form of possession when the protector sets the price. She is not surprised by the new name. Names are just addresses for trouble to find. What surprises her is how ordinary the catastrophe sounds when Holden strips it of the glamour the city adds: a wallet, a bathroom, a check, a phone buzzing at the wrong time. The banality terrifies her because it means the past does not need permission to visit, it simply knows the route. The flashbacks keep inserting themselves into the present like bad code. Holden remembers the gallery owner's line, "Something is missing," and cannot shake the feeling that what went missing wasn't just money but leverage belonging to a larger machine. He remembers the way Mitch's eyes went expressionless when the man called Audra names. Sociopaths do not rise to slurs because slurs are civilian weapons. He remembers the way the club's security feed burned white at a critical angle and wonders who calibrated the glare. He remembers the envelope's paper grain because fear makes you forensic. In the oxygen of confession, patterns appear. The $500,000 looks less like patronage and more like laundering. The thugs at Audra's door look less like personal rage and more like outsourced risk management. The $100,000 thank you looks less like generosity and more like hush rent. Claire connects an even uglier. The protector who made the problem go away later reinvented himself as a man whose investments knit together clubs and galleries and non-profits into a single image of benevolence. Mitch Bacall, the persona Matt Clark wears like a skin. If the missing cashier's check belonged to that network, returning it would never have saved them. The moment Audra grabbed the wallet, she grabbed a thread attached to a bomb. Elsewhere, Detective Burrows is building a case that doesn't know it includes them yet. Sienna is in a chair locating her own survival between honesty and omission. Nick is choosing fury that fits in his pocket instead of the kind that gets men arrested. Victoria is rewriting her brother's accident as a ledger entry in someone else's debt book. And Noah, awake but not delivered, is learning that memory loss is only a plot twist if you sit at home and cheer. to the person without the memory, it is a room with no doors. Into that weather, Holden's confession lands like a barometer needle swinging. He tells Claire the last piece, the part he saved for the end because shame often travels last, that after the envelope arrived he considered returning the money, confessing, even moving. He did none of it. He kept the money and the secret and the job because fear makes practical men practical, and he is a practical man. He assumes this is the moment Claire will decide he is unworthy of whatever future they were quietly building. She does not absolve him. She does not condemn him. She inventories the risk, because love in Genoa City is a risk desk with a pulse. She tells him the only truth that counts, now that the past has keys, they must decide whether to barricade or to invite the police into the foyer and label every box. What neither of them says, what both of them know, is that the story is already moving without them. The gallery owner's panic did not end in that doorway. Panic collects interest. The $500,000 has a provenance someone will someday describe in court. Mitch's protection was not charity. Charity does not insist on non-disclosure. Audra's $100,000 was not a thank you. Gratitude does not require plausible deniability. A name change is not a penance, it is a map folded in a different shape. If Audra collapses, Holden's deposit glows on a ledger. If Holden talks, Mitch's make it right becomes evidence. If Claire stays, she inherits proximity to a fire that has learned all their faces. And yet the alternative, flight, only teaches the fire to run faster. So they do the one brave thing people do when their lives have been curated by other people's appetites. They decide to own the narrative before the narrative owns them. Holden will catalog what he has, the envelope, the bank trace, the camera logs, the emails from a manager who was told not to preserve footage. Claire will take the confession to people who can convert panic into procedure. Somewhere, a prosecutor already has a board that needs this pin. Somewhere, a man still calling himself Mitch is writing a speech about community. Somewhere, the thud of a past catching up sounds like a bass line through a wall. And in the club that taught them both how quickly a night can sour, the brass rail is still cool to the touch, as if nothing ever happened and everything always does.